everyone, hope you're all well. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Steele and this is Hop Pole Studios. And we're back on an unusual day, on a Wednesday. Hope you're all well. This is usually a Monday stream, but I was away at the weekend and I got back on Monday and realised that half of my gear was just not set up at all. I was overheated, tired, all the rest, so here we are. And I have some wine. I also went and got my second jabby jab on Saturday, which is why by Monday I was still completely wiped out, but now I feel a lot better, so cheers. There was a bit of a mad scramble to get here on time because of things I will describe now. So let's go to the screen cap. There we go. So the main thing, if you look very, very closely at this, this is meant to be, this is the one that we've been working on that was finished. If you look closely, you'll see little bits of red down in the mixer. What's that all about? So, when a plugin is red in Reaper, that means it's not been loaded up at all. For one reason or another. In this case, it's a licensing reason, and these are Waves plugins. Now, this is a real annoyance for me, but something I've been thinking about for a long time. When I bought the Waves Horizon bundle, which must have been a year ago either today or yesterday, that came with things that I used to use, like the Waves de-esser, the CLA2A compressor, also the J37 tape. Now that, when you buy plugins from Waves, it already comes with a second set of licenses to use, which of course I have the studio computer and I have this computer which I mix on. And so they allow you to do that with two instances of the same license. However, it turns out that after that year ends and your Waves update plan is kaput, that's it. They take your second license away from you. That is what we call in the industry a dick move. That has now incentivized me to not use Waves plugins anymore, because I'm not paying again for the same plugins I already had just for the privilege of doing what I was already doing with what I had paid for. Now, as it turns out, I'd bought the Horizon bundle with all these lovely plugins and I'd boiled it down to the fact that I only use 3. One's the J37 tape, which I bought outright, so I know I've got 2 licenses for that. I just made sure one's activated here. And the other one's the de-esser, which I've just replaced with the SPL de-esser from the Plugin Alliance subscription that I use. And the other was the CLA2A compressor on this gang vocal, which I've just replaced with the Slate FG2A. And everything sounds exactly as it should. And so there we go. Yeah, I don't know the guys at Plugin Alliance. I've never been like sponsored by them or anything. But the fact that it's a clear-cut thing, people are like, oh, they're constantly taking you money for a subscription deal. Yeah, but that's what I signed up for. Every month I give them $15 and they give me a big chunk of plugins. I stop paying it, they stop giving me the plugins. Clear-cut, fine. So yes, exactly. So we're glad Waves is magnanimous enough to let me rent plugins from them temporarily, yeah. Now, if I keep using stuff from Plugin Alliance long enough, they just give me licenses and vouchers to have stuff out their store for perpetual licenses, which I might do over time, but I use so many of their plugins now that I'll probably just carry on as I am. Anywho, that was the first thing, and that's what held me up. Oh, I've still got something rendering in the background, which I'm going to pause, because that'll be absolutely hammering the poor computer's resources, and we don't want that. Because today, the first thing we're going to be doing is what I have called a reamp party. So there are a load of songs on this album, and there's even a bonus song that never got released, which I'm going to make the bonus song on the new mix album. And where were you? Odd Squad. Mesa Don't You Lie. Yeah, I renamed it because originally because the band was called Odd Squad, and that was the file was just called First Single because it didn't even have a name when we started recording it. So one thing that I've done off camera to save us a few hours of tedium is while I was exhausted a couple of days ago, I was just lazily clicking and importing to every song on the album the master bus that's on the left here, all the settings that we found on the songs we've been mixing on stream, all the drum settings, and I've been rearranging each track so that everything is in proper order and we're not spending 20 minutes per song just getting the files in the right order. You know, don't want that to be crap. So this song is Don't You Lie, and this was the original single. So I've arranged it so now we've got the drums and the DIs. So what we're going to do is half of these songs I actually have the original DIs for, so we're going to reamp all those tonight. And half of the songs we only have a capture of the original amp's head signal, which we're going to put through Torpedo Wall of Sound, probably on another stream. And then, so I still haven't got my Tech 21 Landmark bass amp back in the rack yet. When I finally get around to doing that, then we will have another session where we reamp all the bass stuff. And so very quickly in the next couple of streams, we'll really start to bring a cohesive album together. Then it'll be a lot of Melodyne sessions. And then before you know it, we'll have a full album and we'll be at mastering a lot quicker than we have been because we're no longer kind of tone chasing. At this point, we're kind of going through some of the motions. So this is Don't You Lie. With the DI guitars, of course. Hang on. There we go. Sorry, I just pasted in the guitar group settings from Meant to Be, and it brought the audio in with it into a place that didn't help us. There we go. So, anyway, let's have a quick listen through some of these guitars, because this song has a lot of guitars in it. I think it was some points in the song we end up with 8 or 7 guitars. So, some of these songs now, I've got the 3 amps that are ready to go, 4 amps even. I've got the Rev, which you might not use on this album. I've got the 5150 Mark I, I've got the Marshall JMP, and I've got the Mesa Road King. And right now, the Marshall is the one that's fired up and wired in. And down here, I've got a couple of boost pedals ready to go. I've got the Jupiter FX Jive, and the Tate FX, Antares. Which we'll see, because that's kind of a special edition one that doesn't have anything printed on, so I'm definitely going to have to mess around with that. So, do I ever use a Kemper or similar? No. I have the real amps. As you see, I have all the lovely, lovely things, including a 5150 up there. There's a Hayden amp up there. There's a Mesa Mark IV, which unfortunately is broken right now. Funny story, I'll tell that another time. Kempers are great. Axe FXs are great. I have an Axe FX 1 in the rack right there, which I sometimes use for those big, spacey, super clean sounds. But if I've got them, may as well use them. And there is a certain something I still think about the real heads. I mean, especially as someone who's a studio engineer, it's something that I definitely thinks it's something I should have, and there is a small difference. I mean, depending on genre, if you're going for super heavy, tight, clinical stuff, you can probably get better tones out of a Kemper or an Axe FX, and I'm not going to say you can't. But for proper rock and roll, where you want it to be a little bit dirty, yeah. What wine am I drinking? I am drinking a Barefoot Merlot. Nice and simple, corner store brand. It's good enough. But yeah, seeing as though we're having a party, I thought I'd drink some wine. A Mesa that goes poof is never a funny story. Well, it's going to be fixed. It's fine. Yeah, so the Kyle guitars and these additional guitars on this song are the ones I think I'm going to go with the Marshall for. So what I need to do is shift and click to highlight all these, and then where the routing is at the bottom, if I alt click, none of these are going out of the master anymore, so we won't hear them. Don't you always? I'm looking forward to this song coming together very much because let's just turn off all the I guess I don't need that. Turn off all the setup on the guitar bus and just go from there. So let's go with, because I've just imported the guitar group from Meant to Be, which did have some tracks that, let's just give this lot of colour, nice pink. Some of the tracks in there needed to use Wall of Sound because they were the head captures that we had from the Black Star that we used in the original sessions. And yeah, so I've definitely learned that getting clean DIs of the clean guitar is definitely worth it. Although I don't know why for half the sessions I did and half the sessions I didn't, but we did this over a course of 6 months, sometimes when we were really into it and sometimes when we were absolutely shattered and just needed to get the work done. So let's start with Kyle 1 DI, and let's send this out of analog output 3, which is, as it says, the third output on the interface, which is that Audient ID14 Mark II behind me, which should give me a super clean signal to the Marshall. If I just hit play, yep, I can hear the fan in the Captor X over there going. So let's just look at these guitars and call this Kyle 1. Let's get rid of all these automation points because those are from the previous song and those will not help us. Those will only make life difficult. So Kyle, let's just call this Kyle lead, and then in that we'll have 2 tracks for Kyle left and Kyle right. I know a lot of engineers, I said this last time, I know a lot of engineers will say, I want rhythm 1, rhythm 2, etc, etc. In this case, no, I actually want let's just solo that and solo this DI'd guitar. That's coming out, but it's not super loud. let's just bring up on the other screen a picture of Tate Antares so I can see the controls. Gain, volume, clean, and tone. Why am I not getting an absolute beast of a tone? That's the next question. It's the other way round. So the clean is all the way left, original mix is all the way right. Right, okay. So what I actually want for this is not to have the clean signal going through. I just want to use that as a drive. Noted. Cool. There's going to be some editing on this track, I can tell. And some panning involved too. But yes, let's get these recorded in. Oh yeah, there is going to be some latency as well because of the round trip.
Don't you say nothing is a lie? Will you bring for me tonight? Will you choke out
that bass does sound horrible, but that's the job is making that sound
nothing comes between us. Will you follow me right through?
That's the whole beat out, that's so funny.
Anything you say. Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone?
So Mike asked about the latency being in what we hear, and yes, that's right, it's just in what we hear. It will reset itself at the end. I'm just going to take that down for a second and make sure that everybody heard. Yes, the latency that we're hearing right now on the guitar is only whilst we reamp. Afterwards, the latency compensation, the input should shift it to the right place. Studios. Hearing the bass, I hear him playing hard in certain parts, pulling the bass tuning sharp. How would you go about fixing that after a fact? I wouldn't. It's fine. It's not the problem you think it is, especially when it sits in the mix right. Oh, gee whiz, I pressed the wrong button there, didn't I? Yeah, it seems ridiculous, but honestly, when the guitars are playing, they go slightly sharp too, but in context with everything as a block of noise, it makes sonic sense. Can cool. So what I'm going to try... Yeah, you'd be surprised how many performances of classic tracks over the last 50 years have been out of tune because people have been playing them hard. If you actually listen closely and put a tuning meter on, most songs are all over the show. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. As long as the instruments pretty much do it together in concert, it sounds like it was supposed to be there. To the ear, at least. It's the old joke in jazz. What do you do if you make a mistake? There's no such thing as a mistake. You just play it twice. If you have something that's consistent across all tracks and all channels, it very much is like it was supposed to be there. Right. So next. Oh. That had Melodyne on it. That may well have been introducing even more latency. That's really weird. But okay, so one thing I'm going to try just for this video is I'm going to bring the block size way down. Hopefully this should be fine. Yeah, this computer is more than powerful enough to handle 128 sample latency, even on USB. So let's reamp the other track while we're at it and hard pan them. I know there are going to be a couple of points in this track where this sounds wrong because at some points it's going to be kind of one in the middle and then right. Right. Oh, so Mike's saying, do you mind showing how you reamp? Okay, so there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to use reinsert, but I don't do it that way. So if I was to use reinsert, that is not really reamping. That's using an amp as an outboard effect, which means in that instance you would only be able to do it with one channel is one amp, and that's your lot. The way that I'm doing it is that I've got the original dry DI tracks separately lower down in the project, and what I'm doing is just... like you would do on an analog desk, go into the routing for that track and untick master send so we're not hearing it, and then add a hardware output send out of the track that's running to your reamp box. And then on a separate track here, so I've got Kyle R, I'm just hitting record and choosing the input that's coming in from my Captor X, or if I was in the studio, would be coming in from, say, an SM57 on the cab or whatever. And that then gets recorded onto that whole separate track. And so the DI, I keep at the end of the project usually, and I think of them as a whole separate thing. I think of them like kind of an automatic guitarist. That's all it is. I'm working in my head the same way that I would tracking a real guitarist in the room at the time, because that's what I'm used to doing, that's how I'm used to working, and the fact that it's coming from a DI through a reamp box is an extra step that just feeds that thing, which means that the guitarist doesn't have to play it over and over. So yeah, there you go. It's simpler than people make it to be. And so if I solo my track that I'm going to be recording on, which is pan to the right, and as long as I solo my track as well, it's got the DI on it, it won't play anything for this first little bit, and here it should play an octave down. Yep, lovely. There we go. So yeah, reamping, not as hard as some people seem to make it. There you go. That's better, much less Alright, so for the purposes of these videos as well, I've disabled the master effects so that the latency is lower.
Don't you know that nothing can between us? Will you follow me right through to the point where you can't show anything you say? Don't you always lie? Don't you always stay?
So Reaper compensates for the input latency, not the output latency. But that means that it does compensate because, of course, everything goes out in real time as far as the computer's concerned. Then it takes, at the moment, if I look at my top right underneath the chat, it takes 5.3 milliseconds for the sound to get in and get processed, and then it takes another 4.4 milliseconds to get out to my ears. So, yeah, that's why it sounds like a huge amount. And any plugins that incur latency on the way in then add additional latency to what we were hearing. So in our case, we were actually hearing on the master bus, let's turn all these back on. We were adding another at least 1,500 samples through all these compressors, limiters, and everything that's on the master bus. So if I just turn them all off, then this next bit should sound pretty much in time.
Could only find one reason you don't know me anymore. Smash your bottles to the floor, and you say I can only know why. I can be somebody else, but you hush and you don't know. Yeah, the moments, times, yet you don't.
We got a bit at the end.
Don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath
that's not
to the
quick.
point where we want to be someone's disguise?
Cool. So yeah, that's what we'll have to do, is keep the latency low and turn off all the master processing while we do these. So there were a couple of extra guitars. This song has got far too many guitars in. So when I'm done with the track, by the way, I just have to mute them, and I'm going to drag them to the bottom of each project so that we know that we're done. So there were some additional guitars, we called them. I think let's just turn the outputs on these on. Yeah, so those two can be Marshalls. Yeah, these can all be Marshalls. These are on separate tracks, and I can't remember why, so I'm just going to bump these up so they're all on the same track, because it makes life easier for me. So unsolo everything. Extra, I'm going to call this extra harmony, because I know what these are. And what processing is on that. Get rid. Input, make sure it's analog 1 we're getting the input from, because that's the one that the Torpedo Captor X is connected to. And make sure these aren't coming out the master again, because that would annoy us a little bit. And let's see what we get.
Don't you say.
Helps when you route it out of the analog 3 output. That doesn't work otherwise. Yeah, there
nothing.
Right, so anywhere where there's an additional guitar.
Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath?
Sounds like the bass is gonna need some editing on this one to make it in time.
Wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you say I could only find one reason? You don't know me anymore. Smash your bottles to the floor, and you say I could only know why. I could be somebody else, but you hush and you don't tell. Yeah, the moments die.
Accidentally moved that way too
Yet
far.
you don't know why. And I scream, don't you lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise?
So where's the next additional guitar? It's near the end. Okay.
Always lie, don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we want to be someone's disguise?
Those are supposed to be China cymbals.
Don't you lie?
Are the DIs clipping? Nope. DIs are not clipping. If your DIs are clipping, turn them down. They are occasionally touching the top, which is why they've given a warning, but honestly, these are heavy, distorted guitars. What's a little bit of a clip gonna do? The first thing I'm doing is sending it out of a reamp box into a box that literally clips the signal. In that case, I just don't have to care. If they're clean guitars, then find out if it's an issue, is what I would say. If it is an issue, then you might have to use something like kind of Isotopes declipper or something like that for a clean guitar, but if it's not an issue, don't worry about it, because it'll only drive you crazy. Oh, it's a save. So yeah, next track's on analog in, and where have you gone? I'm driving myself crazy here now. So I need this one to go out of analog 3. I can just drag and drop to copy. And this one should be on the right hand side.
Don't you say nothing is a lie? Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you say I could only find one reason?
Next bit.
And I scream, don't you lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you always stage. Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we want to be someone's disguise? Don't you lie.
Cool, there we go. Alright, so that's the additional guitars. The main rhythm guitars still need doing, but that's when we switch to the Mesa Road King. So what I'm going to do now, I think, is I'm just going to mute additional guitar right and just drag those two tracks to the bottom so that I can disregard them so I know they're done. So it turns out the rhythm guitars from Tom, there's actually 4 tracks of them. So I think what I'll be doing is using 2 with the Mesa Road King and 2 with the PV5150 just for variety. And the solo, that's a separate thing. I'm thinking 5150, so again, I'll come back to that. Now, new project tab, and I need to go through the list of songs which I have here. So Don't You Lie needs a full reamp. 3 Years Time is the next song that needs a full looking at. So 3 Years Time, there we go. Oh, right, okay, so that's one of the ones where Dropbox was being a pain with me. If I go to all files and go to the bottom, there we go. There's new temp, which they put on there for some silly reason, but there we go. It's just a file naming thing. Any plans for additions for the new stuff in Reaper? Yes, eventually we will be filming a section to update the Ultimate Reaper Guide to include things like the new LUFS meters and all that kind of stuff. Actually, if you look at the bottom left, it's tiny writing, but underneath the volume, it doesn't say RMS anymore, it says LI. So it's actually measuring my integrated LUFS loudness.
Let's just fall through, just take time, then breathe slow, so you can realize just what you.
So first thing I'm going to do on this song is turn off the master processing, turn everything down by several dB.
Let's just fall through, just take time.
Probably turn down the bass a little bit just because it's killing us. And let's have a listen to some of these Kyle guitars, because I remember these being quite nice and also cleaner than some of the other songs, so we may have to dial the Marshall back a little. Right, so what I think I'm going to do, this calls for an entirely unboosted. There we go, let's just clean out the gap there. I don't know why that was like that.
And this was your glass.
And let's just not mute them, let's just make sure they're not coming out of the master. Oh, I always make sure, as a good tip as well, make sure your DIs when you're sending them out, if they had panning on for you to listen to them, straighten the pan out, because by panning it off to the left or to the right, you're actually sending it out of the reamp channel 6 decibels lower because the pan law, which means that you're not hitting the amp as hard as you probably should be, which only means that you can introduce another 6 dB of noise trying to turn up the gain. Either that or you can send a cleaner, hotter signal out, which means that you're not getting as much background noise. There's no room light on it here, that's why it feels a little bit like a dungeon. There we go, that's better. Sorry, it was starting to feel a little bit too cinematic in here. So let's just copy the guitar group out of Don't You Lie into here, there we go, and just delete all the content out of it. And get this one recorded. And this is going to be far too heavily driven. to start with, but that's fine. Now to tweak it.
It's your life, speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. It's too late now.
There's something on the guitar group that's also adding a bit more latency. Is it Track Spacer? Oh, it's Virtual Tape Machines from Slate is on, which is adding extra latency to the whole thing. So let's just turn that off while we track as well. And let's get this recorded in up here and just have a listen.
It's your life, speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. It's too late, now you're gone. All of these promises, it's never right. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance. You see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. Never cross me. Never cross me. Now you see what we do when all our plans just fall through. Just take time, then breathe slow, so you can realize just what you did. It's so long gone, it's over now, our own way. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance. See the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. Never cross me. Now we say goodbye to someone we once stuck with us.
To the clean
This
bit.
was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. All the things you did, all the things you did. All the things you did, all the things you did. This was your chance. Oh.
This one's going to sound nice because I think the Marshalls are going to take center stage, even though we're going to have the Road King underneath this one. So yeah, let's untick that and get the. We'll hard pan that to the left now, and we've got one from the right. Make sure we drag and drop the right thing, mute one and unmute the other, so there's no possible mistaking it. And here we go. This is how it should sound in stereo. Hang on. Oh, I sent Kyle 2 out, and so let's send Kyle 1 out, and then there's still stereo, but just the other way. That was silly. Where's that?
It's your life, speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. mine. It's too late, now you're gone. All of
That
these
sounds better.
promises rip right through. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance. You see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Now you have me. Fall away. Never cross me. Never cross me. Now you see what we do when all our plans just fall through. Just take time, then breathe slow, so you can realize just what you did. It's so long gone, it's over now, our own way. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glass. See the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. Never cross me.
Now we say
there we go,
good.
and-
This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your
That's a vintage Marshall.
glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. All the things you did. 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 This was your chance. Oh.
Can I remember what bass was used on the recording? Let's listen to. Looking at that. That was probably Declan's bass. It was some crappy chord thing. It'll sound a lot better when we run it through the landmark. For now, that is just straight DI sound. And so it sounds pretty horrible. But
It's your chance.
that's only for now. That's a placeholder, shall we say. Right, so Kyle 1 and 2 have now been done, so I'll drop them at the bottom. Just to check they weren't the same one and I'm not going crazy. No. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's just have a listen to the other DIs. What are you? So if I just... Yeah, okay, so these ones, now I'll make sure these aren't coming out of the master. These I can go back to using slightly higher gain because these are going to be lower down in the mix. These are going to be supporting characters. And generally I find that, especially in this kind of pop punk stuff, the supporting guitars can have more gain than you thought because they'll be lower down in the mix and that just helps them sit in their own place. Sometimes it's the opposite way round, you just have to feel for that. So, yeah, that one, not that one. Let's hear you. And again. Is this supposed to be louder? out brighter. Come on. And again. One more time. And a little bit more of that other preamp valve. Yeah, there we go. So that's a properly driven Marshall now. Which again, when that's off to the side, will make more sonic sense, I think.
It's your life. This was your chance to do everything with plan. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me.
Sounds awesome.
Fall away. Never cross me.
It should sound halfway awesome because we are very much at the halfway stage, but by the time we're finished, it should sound awesome.
Now you see what we do.
Because it's funny that we're reamping these guitars like half of the parts at a time, and the bass is the original DI, so right now it actually, to me, sounds pretty awful, but I'm having to hear past it.
Away. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance. See the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. Never cross me.
Now we say goodbye.
To someone we once knew. Spray us down the line. Finding someone new.
Someone who'll try harder.
Someone we can trust.
Someone else who's stuck with us.
This was your chance
Torpedo
to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. All the things you did. All the things you did. All the scars you did. All the things you did. This was your chance. Oh.
Yeah, it's a good track. Yeah, in fact, this whole album I thought was really good, which is why I'm revisiting it now. So that's a track that I can now discard to the bottom, but I'm doing them in pairs, so this should make more sense now if I've got it recording on the other side. Let's see how it sounds in stereo. That makes more sense.
It's your life, speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. It's too late, now you're gone. All of these promises never right from us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Yeah, you had me. Fall away. Never trust me. Never trust me.
So if you're interested, this is my go-to
Now you
Torpedo
see
Captor
what
X
we do
settings.
when all our plans just fall
I do vary it
through.
sometimes,
Just
but this
take
is my
time,
number one.
breathe slow.
setup.
So you can realize just what you did. It's so long gone. It's over now. Our own way. This was your chance to everything we planned. This was your glass. See bridges we could cross. Far away. Yeah, you had me. Far away. Never cross me.
Now we say goodbye
To someone we once knew, stray us down the line, finding someone new,
someone who'll try harder,
someone we can trust.
someone else who's stuck with us.
This was your chance to do everything
Away.
Yeah, you had me.
Far away.
All the things you did,
All the things you did, all the things you did, all the things you did.
this was your chance. Oh.
Yeah, we spent some time, I remember, when we tracked this album, really making sure that the actual guitar tones, like the pickup choices and everything, kind of fit what we were doing, and there was some really nice stuff. I mean, yeah, when we get to doing the Mesa stuff later, that's really gonna change the feel of the song, because that's a lot heavier and kind of really backs this up. But right, that and this are now done. They can go to the bottom there. I can hit save on this track, and we can have another project tab open. So what's the next song? Every Moment's Gone. Oh yes, Every Moment's Gone. There it is. Oh, another one where I've got to do the RPP temp thing. All files. But yeah, like I said, on Sunday I went through, and every single song on the album that we've not already covered, I sorted it all out and made it presentable for the stream, because it was taking up time on the stream that I just didn't want to waste. So there we go. There's the solo. Oh, that one I mustn't have the... that's right, I don't have anything for that other than the capture of the Black Star head. So what I'm going to have to do for this one is use Wall of Sound, download license, blah, 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 and... let's use something slightly different just to make it stand out. Let's use the Kraken Open Back Classic with a 57 tilted.
Every moment
That'll do. Right, so I'm already doing that. I'll copy the big pink group over past the bass track. 3, 2, 1, stomp. There we go. So let's get Kyle recorded. And by copying and pasting the entire group, that just saves me some time, because I've already got things like a nice SSL console set up on the guitars from the previous session. LA2A barely doing anything. EQ that's just pushing the mids a touch. tape machine, transformers, and track space are linked to the vocals, which we're not doing yet, but we'll do when we get round to it. Oh, thank you very much. So, the Kyle guitars on this song aren't doing very much. Let's just listen to these. Right. Right, so they're not actually doing that much on this particular track, which is fine, I guess. Let's just make sure that one's going out. Pull the solo in here so that it's in the guitar group already. Just so we know we've got the right tracks and
I won't shut up, so you.
Sorry, that just sounds.
I won't shut up.
What's that about? Oh no, it's just a naming thing. Let's just solo this guitar part and the DI and just see what sort of sound we're getting. I want a bit more gain than that. So that's just me turning up the gain on the Antares. Let's just get that in the mix.
I won't shut up, so you can hear the crowd screaming my heart out in vain. You could only hear my voice, 'cause you know that I'm insane. And I scream, you're not getting any sleep too.
Just bought the course. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I hope you get what you were looking for out of it.
Yet you always do the same, 'cause you know that I'm to blame. Taking yourself into denial, but you and
Looks like this might need some editing.
teenage love carry on and on and on and on and on. You could only fall away from me now.
1, 2, 3.
Take away the signs from yesterday, 'cause I could only be myself.
You know what? Sorry, I'm going to just start this again because one thing I was going to do was
'Cause
turn
you
up.
know that I won't
this.
shut up, so you can hear
So
the
we're getting
crowd.
much better input level now.
'Cause you know that I won't shut up, so you can hear the crowd.
That's making the meters move more.
My heart
It's a lot louder than I would usually run at, but for this track, this album, it seems to work.
'Cause you know that I'm insane. And I scream, you're not getting any sleep tonight. Yet you always do the same, 'cause you know that I'm to blame. Taking yourself into denial, but you and I both know that teenage love carry on and on and on.
That chord ring, son.
And on. You could only fall away from me now. Take away the signs from yesterday, 'cause I could only be myself. 'Cause I know, and I scream, you're not getting any sleep tonight.
Cool. This is one of those songs that will definitely make more sense sonically. Oops. That's what I was saying about not panning your DIs, and I made that critical mistake. So this one's going to be a lot more high gain than the previous one. What an
'Cause
idiot.
you know that I won't shut up, so you can hear the crowd screaming my heart out in vain. You could only hear
Actually
my
sounds nice.
voice, 'cause you know that I'm insane.
Okay, so I'm just going to take that down because I've just had the question, how did we track the guitar? So originally, the guitars were plugged into a DI box, split out into a tube screamer, then into a Black Star Series 100 head, which then went into our live room with a cabinet and a broken SM57 and a terrible Chinese ribbon mic. And also for most of these songs, in between the head and the speaker cabinet, I also managed to capture with a speaker level DI the sound of the head, which later on in these sessions you'll see more of, because some of these songs in different sessions I forgot to track the completely clean DI, but the guitarists at the time heard the amps. This is several years later, and so no, the guitarists were not listening to the guitarists were not just listening to clean guitars, they had a fully distorted amp, but I've decided since that it didn't sound great and that I have better amps and a better setup and better sound. So now I'm running what I captured, which for 50% of these songs was the completely clean DI, back through better amps, better choices, and it's coming together very nicely. So let's get that volume back up so you guys can... I don't care. There we go. This song's quite simple orchestration-wise for guitars, so that's good because those two are done, which means this song is also done. It's mostly the Road King's going to carry this one. Next song, let's look at the list. So yeah, the ones where I've put bass only, those are the songs where we didn't have the original DI, so I'm going to use 2 Notes Wall of Sound to put a virtual cabinet on top of the original head captures. I didn't think a broken SM57 was possible. Oh yeah, it's possible. Funny thing, most people think SM57s and 58s are indestructible. They're not at all. It's just that most of them are kept by very angry, very grumpy sound guys who've had to repair them 110 times. So anyway, Mug in Love is the last one where we need to do a full reamp. So that's the last one of these we're going to do. Oh, that's another. That's really annoying. Mug in Love. And then we're going to turn off the Marshall, and then we're going to turn on the Mesa and go back through these songs and do the other channels, and then any channels that haven't worked, then I'm going to use the 5150 to finish the job. Leave that file offline. Yes, because there was a sub bomb at the end of this track, wherever that... Oh, yeah. Right, so that sub drop channel can go because I'm using the Joey Sturgis sub destroyer to make sub drops on command. Very cool little plugin. And then I've just got an automation lane there triggering it at the points that I want it, which is really nice. Now let's have a look at this because it's a bit of a weird one, this one. It seems that for one of the Kyle guitars, I was only capturing the actual DI from about halfway through. I think I kind of woke up and smelled the coffee and realised it wasn't plugged in, or that I hadn't hit record or something like that. So, yeah, we need to go in. This is going to be the highest gain, I think, that we've had out of the Marshall. But this song is quite a high gain, explosive song, so that makes sense. In this case, Kyle left is going to be transplanted from there. I don't think that one had... So the Kyle solo track that I made on the previous song I'm just gonna put these guitars in here, and I'm gonna drop the wall of sound plugin on those, and that should fix these problems and clear up. There we go. So that's a proper rip-roaring game.
It's for the best.
So what I'm looking to do this time is make sure that the Kyle 3DI is going out full blast out of not the DI, not out of the master, but out of analog 3. Let's solo that, and vocals sound bad. No, we've not got round to that yet. Those are just the raw, unprocessed, untuned, uncompressed, completely raw vocals. And right now, I don't care. How hard was it to isolate the recordings live? We did it bit by bit, mate. That's how people do it. Is we recorded the drums to a rough scratch guitar, then we overlaid the bass, then we overlaid the guitars layer by layer. And that's how it's done almost all the time on studio recordings. That sounds good. That's the Antares that's the Antares hitting the Marshall pretty hard. Let's hear that in context. Even without the main rhythm guitar underneath, that should sound pretty big. Especially the left one that we're redoing. When that's got 2 more tracks in, that's going to sound huge. that might not be the right cab on that side for that guitar part, but that's fine. Ooh, it's a nice little ringing noise there. There is, like I said, a lot of background noise on that. But that is the Marshall done. So there is no clean on this song. There's probably no clean on most of these now. So save, go back to Don't You Lie and turn off the Marshall. That's the next bit. And turn on the Mesa. All right. Now I've got the Road King turned on, and I am letting that warm up for a minute while we get Don't You Lie on the road. So this one, let's make sure everything is completely flattened. Make sure the input is the right channel, because it may not be. No, it isn't. It's nowhere near. And yeah, that amp's on. Just gonna make sure I've plugged into the right input there. All right. It could just be that the gate on the torpedo remote is catching it. No gate. Okay, well, let's get the Tom DI number 1. Send that out of output 3. Well, that's working. Hello, Kerner. This is, yeah, that sounds pretty big. Little bit raspy. That's on modern. Let's try vintage. I think that's about right. Gain's only halfway up. Sounding pretty brutal to me. Okay, so let's get this slammed in the track and see how far we get. Where we'll start to hear the song come together.
Don't you know that nothing comes between us? Will you follow me right through to the point where you can't choose anything you say? Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be I could only find one reason. You don't know me anymore. Smash your bottles to the floor, and you say I could only know why. I could be somebody else, but you hush and you don't say. Yeah, the moment dies, yet you don't know why. And I scream, don't you lie, don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise?
This is the solo section.
Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you lie?
Yeah, good old reliable Road King. Sounds like a Mesa every time. So, mute you. Send this one out instead, and off we go. Oh, and let's pan them left and right now, so instead of it coming down the middle, this should sound huge.
Don't you say nothing is a lie? Will you put to the point where you catch anything you say? Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you say I could only find one reason? You don't know me anymore. Smash your bottles to the floor, and you say I could only know why. I could be somebody else, but you hush and you don't say. Yeah, the moment dies, yet you don't know why. And I scream, don't you lie, don't you always think? Can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you always lie? Don't you always think? Can you be someone
save. No, actually save. Make sure these two tom guitars are muted and drop to the bottom of the project. And that's 60% of the guitars of that track done. So now on to 3 years' time. Because I'm hoping to use the same settings for the Road King for the whole thing. I mean, now I'm using the Antares Overdrive and I wasn't before, but the Antares, it would not be fair to say it's a clone of a Tube Screamer, but it's got features in that same kind of idea ballpark, as well as some cool extra features. So, as long as I do this right, I should get a very similar sound across the album for all the tom tracks. Let's make sure this is on analog 1. May as well do that one while I'm at it, even though I'm not using it. That's just good housekeeping. Where's the tom start? So there. Chug, 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 chug.
Promises live right through. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away, fall away, never cross it. Realize just what you do is so long
This guitar features more as the song goes on to make it a heavier and heavier song, so it's got more of a build. Very clever. These guys were like 19 at the time. Those are the little things, which is why we're hoping these guys will go on to be quite a big band, but not to be.
Fall away, fall away, never cross me. Now we say goodbye to someone we once knew. 3 years down the line, finding someone new, someone who'll try harder, someone we can trust, someone else who's stuck with us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away. Can you have me? Fall away. All the things you did, all the things you did, all the scars you did, all the things you did. This was your chance. Oh.
Cool, and now we flip over, mute that one, unmute that one, send the analog over, and off we go.
All of the
Nope, still recording on both channels. Let's not.
all
only makes
of
life
these
difficult.
promises
Stereo.
slip right through. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Fall away, fall away, never cross me. Realize just what you did is so long gone. your chance to do everything we planned. This was your glance to see the bridges we could cross. Far away, yeah, you had me. Far away,
2, 3,
all the crimes you did, all the things you did, all the storms you did, all the things you did. This was your chance.
It's funny, I've it's just occurred to me, like, I'm running a 150 watt amp, the Road King, in 150 watt mode with all 6 valves going into 100 watt 2 notes Captor X. People ask a lot of stuff about, like, oh, is that going to break my amp? Is that dangerous? And it's like, well, if I was running it near 100% output volume, that would absolutely be dangerous. But as it stands, that's not what I'm doing. I'm running it with the master volume on it is below halfway. The reason I'm running it in 150 watt mode is because that means there's absolutely no chance that the sound is going to just start squishing. It's got loads of headroom while still being that classic valve sound. Right, so every moment's gone. Let's have a look. This one is definitely a Tom song. I can see how this has got some very what's the word? Very heavy and high output bits, and it's all very heavy driven. This was very much a track where we wanted to use a Mesa, but we didn't have access to one, so we made the Black Star that we had sound as high gain as we could, and it was never quite there, whereas these... so the solo's already going. Just going to the amp.
Every moment in this room,
I'm confused.
yeah,
What
it's
the heck?
tearing down too soon. You could only fall asleep.
Just gonna play this back. What the heck? Oh, don't tell me that's been happening this whole time. The input routing. Oh, because 3 and 4 are supposed to be DAW through. Let's just comb through. What channels do we have that's going to analog 3? Those 2 are muted, so it shouldn't be those. The master definitely shouldn't be going out of the reamp out. Oh, it was recording the loop back. That's why. That's fine. Turns out I'm just an idiot. Nothing new there. This is also one man's descent into madness after 3 glasses of wine, so that's more like it.
Every moment in this room, yeah, it's tearing down too soon. You could only fall asleep, 'cause you know that I won't shut
let's overwrite that.
You're not getting any sleep tonight. You're not gonna fall away with pride. Every moment's gone, 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 every moment's gone.
Okay, that's better. And now in stereo, that's going to make a lot more sense. From here, turn that one off, turn that one on, and let the stereo commence.
Every moment in this room, there is tearing down too
With a
soon.
much fuller sounding bass, this is going to be glorious.
Fall asleep, 'cause you know that I won't. Shut up, so you can hear the crowd screaming my heart out in vain. You could only hear my voice, 'cause you know that I'm insane. And I scream, you're not getting any sleep tonight. You're not gonna fall away with pride tonight. Yet you always do the same, 'cause you know that I'm to blame. Taking yourself into denial, but you and I both know that tears love carry on and on and on and on and on. You could only fall away from me now. Take away the signs from yesterday, 'cause I could only be myself. 'Cause I know and I scream, you're not getting any sleep tonight. You're not gonna fall away with pride tonight. 'Cause every moment's gone, and I can only breathe now. You're the one who's gone. Yes, you know my name, screaming out sorry, just 'cause you're my friends. You're not getting any sleep tonight. You're not gonna fall away with pride. Every moment's gone, 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 every moment's gone.
Awesome. One of the things I love about dual rectifiers is that they have this knack of just filling all the sonic space and just making everything sound huge, which makes me very happy. And it's something that no model of a dual rectifier has ever quite got there. Because the dual rectifier is a weird design compared to anything else, which makes things rather awkward. So Kyle 3 and 4, they can go to the bottom of Mug in Love. And tom guitars. Let's just open them up, get rid of that EQ. And hit record on this one. Make sure it's not on loopback because that was a slight embarrassment. And yeah, this one's got, again, tom blasting all the way through. So, without further ado, let's make sure these two DIs are full volume, 0 pan, coming out, all guns blazing through the right output, and just mute one of them so we don't end up with a double, because that's always horrible. Sending two guitar signals through the same amp at the same time sounds bad. Here we go.
Bring me to my knees. I want to play on. Now after time, I can see it's the truth. I can see I'm over you. All inside it's for the best. I need so bad you're I'm over you. All the time it's for the best.
I think I'm going to reamp that Marshall on my right hand side just for the bits that I do have, because that sounds pretty bad. It's very emo to leave that ringing out on the just the noise at the end. I might do that anyway because it's kind of keeping in fitting with the band. They were certainly not what I would call an emo band, but they definitely had influences from pop punk right the way through the emo spectrum, shall we say. But yeah, this should now sound huge with the double tracked Road King. Here we go. Yes.
Now after time, I can see
Cool. Well, that's the end of the Road King reamps. So I can turn that off. And I am, just for the crack of it, gonna just duplicate this Kyle 3, mute Kyle 4, and I am gonna resurrect that Kyle 4 track, and I am gonna reamp it after all. Obviously it's only for that much of the song, but I think from the second half of the song onwards it's really important to have less of that kind of horrible thing that the Black Star originally had. And so if we can at least kind of EQ match the first half of the song so it roughly kind of blends in roughly the same, then we're fine. Yes, as Marty's saying in chat about interference from things like lights, I'm not finding that to be a problem because I made sure I didn't get any that had like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything inbuilt. They've all got just infrared remote. Turn that on. That's going to take a minute to warm up, but that's okay. There we go. We can hear the valves starting to come online. So let's just solo that guitar and that, and just see with this setting if I need to change anything. Yeah, there we go. That's a good setting. Let's get that run through.
I'm over you.
Oh, that's lovely. Hi, Scott. Sit on my chest. And just let that do the noisy. Nice. Okay. So yeah, I will have to do some clever EQ matching, but if I mute that amount of that guitar, then
I'm over you.
yeah, I'll have to make do with that guitar up until the switch there. And if I get the EQ right, and I'll have to do that later when I'm not 3/4 of a bottle of wine in, and then I'll be able to match them so that they sound similar enough that it doesn't catch your ear when it changes. And even though if I told you and you listen to it in a mix and you go, oh yeah, I hear that, quite often you can get away with stuff like this in a mix, because unless people are told, they don't hear it and they don't care. So especially there's this big bit in the song where it's got the hang. That bit, yeah. 4-tap phase. No, thank you, Alfie. This is no. No, just no. If you want to write an album and put a phase at the end, please do. But no. Right, so anyway, Marshall goes off again. And the lead gets passed into 5150, which then gets plugged in to the red input on the captor and gets power. Let's get that warming up, get the 5150 on. So, I've still got some DIs to go. This is Don't You Lie. And this has got 2 of those dual rectifier channels. So, I'm just going to duplicate that and call it Tom 3, 4, because this is the only song where we do this, but this is the song that has the proper wall of noise. So let's get this going out of analog 3, rename these to Tom 3 head and Tom 4 head so that I know where I'm up to, and let's just solo this and the tom guitar. So that's the crunch mode on the 5150, and I'm going to brighten this up a bit. Because this guitar is mostly accenting. Okay, so don't want to solo this. Let's run it through and hear this as we go. And this should just fill out the sound. See, I've already edited the DI for this really quite tightly.
And you say I could only know why I could be somebody else, but you hush and you don't say. Yeah, the moment dies, yet you don't know why. And I scream, don't you lie, don't you always.
Don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we want to be someone's disguise? Don't you lie.
I think this is probably a good time to mention, because I've had a request in the chat, that we don't do backseat mixing on this stream. This is me showing you what I would do in certain situations and not the other way around. So please don't get offended if you put in a suggestion and I just say no, because that's not how this is designed anyway.
Don't you say nothing is allowed.
Hello, Poo Ninja. Good to see you again.
Will you bring
Glad you like it.
tonight?
Let's play it through. It's not done, but
Don't you know that nothing
it's got about 12 guitar parts in it, which keeps me busy.
follow me right through to the point where you can't shoot anything you say.
Don't you always lie? Don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise?
Don't you say I could only find one reason you don't know me anymore? Smash your bottles to the floor, and you say I could only know why. I could be somebody else, but you hush and you don't say. Yeah, the moment dies, yet you don't know why. And I scream,
Don't you lie? Don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we wanna be someone's disguise? Don't you always lie? Don't you always think, can you be someone tonight? Can you take my breath to the point where we want to be someone's disguise? Don't you lie?
awesome. It's 8 guitars at the end. We need to volume balance them so that these two pop out at the end, but yeah, that's come together. Sorry if I look like I'm slightly insane, it's because I'm looking around, because I can smell a horrible burning smell in this room now, and I think a bug might have got into the back of the 5150, which is why, if I just move that up, that's the one we're using right now. That one's on, I suspect that, yeah, some sort of moth or something has got into the back of the 5150, and that's why it suddenly smells like a horrible burning. So that's the Tom DIs. Yeah, if anyone wants to ask questions, feel free. That's kind of why we're here. But just telling people like, why don't you do this crazy thing? It's like, because that was never in the original vision. Yes. Yeah, someone was saying they like the snare sound, which is cool. But yeah, me and Scott have an ongoing joke about, oh, you snare shit. Which makes me laugh. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this solo because I've got 3 tracks to do because they stack up, which is great. There's a proper stacking solo here, but what I'm going to do is these 3 DIs, I'm going to send them all out of analog 3. I'm going to mute these first 2 so that we're not getting a stack up and a sort of a sonic pile up. And we're going to move to the lead channel on the 5150. Oh, there you go. Huh. Takes far too long to move to the lead channel on there, but seeing as though it's a studio tool, I don't really need to care. Let's hear it. Please connect the torpedo. What's it gone loose? Didn't unplug it. Definitely something burny smelling over here. Damn 5150, man. Good question from Braxel. Do you use an aux or a 2-notes captor? When I'm in Studio A, which is our big studio, then I use the real cabs. I'm in Studio B, which is actually like my home mixing platform. And in this case, these are all going to a 2-notes captor X. Yeah, there won't be studio fire, fear not. It definitely smells like that smell of a crispy bug, you know. But yeah. Let's get a bit more gain on this. I can hear it now. That is nice and harmonically juicy. I like it. There's some noise in the background, but never mind. That's, yeah, minus 30 dB noise level. That's pretty high, but never mind. Here we go. Frying the transformer, no, it is actually the smell of a bug because, like, I was getting that smell before we even made any noise as soon as I turned the 5150 on. Don't worry about it. Yeah, as Danny says, I've captured for 2-notes every single one of the cabinets that Studio A has. And yeah, no, we're not frying transformers, don't worry about that. Everything's properly connected, has a proper load on, which means I could literally run the volume at 100 and that would not be the case. Don't worry about it. The valves would literally saturate. That is their job, to provide valve saturation before any damage would occur. I have had the Chinese 6505 plus 112 combo start smoking on me before, but that turned out just to be a blown up capacitor because it was cheap Chinese rubbish. So let's just pan this one off to the side a little and just track this in. question from Poo Ninja. When you're multi-tracking for thickness, do you change guitar amps or guitars or what? That is a very good question. Yeah, that was a proper heavy pick attack. Tom from Mesa has a proper thunderous right hand, which I like. But yeah, to answer your question, depends on the band. Sometimes I'll use the same exact thing, especially if you're double tracking. Quite often for metal, I will use identical on both sides. For rock, I will quite often just change a pickup or change the gain slightly. Or yeah, I will introduce slight differences just almost to entertain myself. Here we go. There we go, just mute that, turn that record off. That one's rough. There we go. That's going to need a little bit of studio magic when we come to the mix to make it bigger, but I did it with like pseudo stereo stuff last time. In terms of effects using mainly plugins. In this situation, it's all in the box. It's all plugins. It's all plugins because they're at a point now where they work perfectly well. I do have some hardware here actually, which I'm going to be integrating into Studio A. I've got these that arrived today from HRK. I've got little LA4 compressors, VCA solid state SSL compressors. I've got a lovely set of preamps ×4. I've got some analog saturation gear. Most of it I'm going to be using in tracking rather than mixing though, honestly, because mixing, it's not worth the hassle a lot of the time. So, yes. So, that can go. And anyway, it's one of those things, if you're now going to kind of judge me by the quality of the what you call them, the quality of the mixes that you're hearing right now, this is not exactly a finished product. Let's put it that way.
Nothing.
What's happening? You guys are hearing it. I might not. Oh, my headphones have come out. They're caught under my foot. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one.
It's your life, speak your mind. Late, now you're gone.
Right, so I'm gonna do a tom solo, and I'm gonna just, bring that in, and I'm definitely gonna turn the amount of gain down because that is an ungodly amount of noise, which I kind of needed to get the tone I was after on the previous track, but definitely don't on this one. So yeah, don't need that. And again. There we go. So that can go in. There we go, nice and juicy from the 5150 there, but not overly gainy. You can hear how the noise floor is now all but just disappeared. There's no noise gate on that, but the Antares had its gain absolutely goosed, and the amp did as well. The amp gain on the 5150 was on 5 out of 10, which that's an amp with, I think it's either 5 or 6 gain stages in the lead mode. Now the gain on the lead mode is on 2 out of 10, and it's still this juicy when hit with a tube screw.
This was your chance to do everything. This was your glance to see the bridges we just lost. Fall away, yeah, you had me. Fall away, never trust me. Never trust me. Now you
That's
see
really nice and
what
harmonically
we do.
rich. I do love harmonically rich tones. You can hear it in the mids where the harmonics are starting to jump out.
This was your chance to do everything. This was your glass to see the bridges we just lost. Fall away, yeah, you had me. Fall away, never try. Fall away, all the tries you did, all the things you did, all the scars you did, all the things you did. This was your chance.
There we go. And fun fact, even though that was exactly the same part each time, it was absolutely not copy pasted, because for years and years I have insisted on not copy pasting unless I'm absolutely forced to. Like, let's say that the musician has, died or is in a different country and we need the same part flown in. In that case, I will copy paste, but if the musician's in the room, nope, you play it again. So that doesn't need recording anymore. That can go. Burning smell is gone, which means the moth has thoroughly been consumed by the flame of whatever amp it had sat in, or possibly the just light. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that's got a colour, track colour, random colour, there we go. And so there's 2 more. There's 2 more tracks from Tom. So this is going to be hilariously overgained at first. So I'm just going to play this little section through. And I'm just going to adjust the gain until it sounds reasonable. There we go. I never like truly clean unless it's a particular band that goes for that. I do have a Fender Twin in the studio that I use when I need super duper duper clean. But yeah, there you go. Let's track music.
It's your life, speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. It's too late, now you're gone. All of these promises rip right through. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance.
There we go. And same later on.
Now you see what we do when all the pleasures fall through. Just take time to breathe slow so you can realize just what you did. It's so long gone, it's over now. Our own way. This
was only for those two sections there. So let's make sure that's got the proper input from the other side. Suddenly it will become more sonically apparent because when it's on left and right sides, the volume jumps by 6 decibels.
It's your life,
There it is.
speak your mind. You don't know what you'll find. It's too late, now you're gone. All of these promises, it's never right. You don't want me here. This gravity won't drown us. This was your chance. Now you see what we do when all our pleasures fall through. Just take time to breathe slow so you can realize just what you did. It's so long gone, it's over now. Our own way. This was your chance.
That's how we get lots and lots of tastiness in there. Because, yeah, like I said, that's not completely clean, but when you...
Just take time to breathe slow.
A lot of the perceived drive on cleanish but not completely clean tracks kind of dissolves into the mix when it's a busy mix. It just, that extra grit helps it have a place. So let's just mute those, drag them to the bottom, hit save, blah, blah, blah. Check this song. Doesn't have any extra hidden guitars. That's nice and simple. Lovely. Mug in Love. Did that have anything else? No, because that needs muting going to the bottom. And the extra guitar harmony channel needs to go. That is that. And we've been doing this for 2.5 hours. And I have drunk the largest percentage of an entire bottle of wine, which means this is very much the point where I need to say that's enough for this week and carry on next week with a fresh head, because I'm going to have the Tech 21 Landmark 300 amp back in Studio B. It's still at Studio A, but I'm there tomorrow. And so I'm going to bring that in, have that in the rack, reamp all the bass parts. Then we're going to look at all the melodyning for all the vocals for these songs. But yeah, for the bass, there's actually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tracks that we need to run the bass for. And then we're really starting to get somewhere then, because then we can start to balance all the instrumentals. Then we can copy all the vocal effects across. And largely at that point, we will need to add the Torpedo Wall of Sound stuff to the guitars on the tracks we didn't cover tonight. But within a few sessions, we're going to be pretty much on top of just needing vocal tuning and then automating levels and everything. And we're going to have an album. Oh, the next thing I am going to do quickly is... That's what I'm going to do. Come on, sentences. I'm just going to show you a couple of the tracks that you won't have heard in the state that they are now in, because I got these really great sounds with Meant to Be that were absolutely radio ready, I think. And so, yeah. Do you think the tracking the DI signal out of a Kemper would be okay for reamping? Yeah, I think so. The DIs from a Kemper are perfectly clean. I mean, it's a really expensive DI box. Don't buy a Kemper just for its DI, but if you're using a Kemper's model and it outputs a DI as well, it's a good enough quality DI, definitely. If you change your mind later on. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're paying over £1,000 for a Kemper, I would expect the DI to be clean, you know. So that was Pirates. This is Saviour, and there's Watch the World as well. So I've essentially got a 4-track EP now that's pretty much finished, and I may as well play them for you before we go tonight. so that you can hear where we've got to. These have all got the master chain, including the limiter on, which I'm going to take the limiter off so that when we get to the final mastering stage, we can make some more informed decisions compared to something else that would be going out on a radio release. And I've just been informed here that the DSs have disappeared. So this is probably a good time to Odd Squad Savior Pirates. Sorry, Odd Squad Savior Pirates. Watch the world. To replace those DSs, like I said at the start of the stream, with the SPL one. That should fix that issue. We've got that much wine left, and we started the stream with a full bottle. Oh dear. Luckily, we've got to the point where I'm doing absolutely menial tasks, and my ears are not particularly required, thank God. It's a massive storm outside as well, considering it's been a heat wave for a while. I'm actually almost kind of grateful. So I'm going to close Mug in Love. Meant to be... Sorry, computer's being slow because I've got 4 songs open with the entire mix. SPLDS, if I right click on it, yes. So I can right click on any effect in Reaper and just go copy effects. And then, so this, meant to be, you've all heard that one, I think. No, I'm not mixing drunk, thank God. I am slightly tipsy at this point, however, I'm not mixing. Let's just mute that because I think last time I rendered it, that one accidentally added into the project. We don't want that. Vocals. So I've only got 3 vocals on this track, so I can just right click paste effects and make sure the SPLDS goes in to the right place. Because I want it to go in the right place in the signal chain, otherwise that will screw everything. So this is Savior. This is how it ended up now with the settings all moved over from meant to be.
You think we're friends? Guess again. I'll be down. I'll be on the inside of you. You'll be on the inside of me. Before you know, clocks will turn. I'll be down and you'll say, I will be free. Gemma said that I will be free. I can be a savior, savior. I could have been a ship to sea to keep you safe from danger, danger. But you would never notice me at all.
And that's sounding pretty good. Now let's move over to Pirates and do the same thing. I'm just going to make the effects rack slightly bigger because it makes it quicker if I can see everything and I'm not just doing it in a big queue of effects. There we go. So the red ones are the Waves DSs that we had and we no longer need them, so bye-bye. And this is Pirates.
So the sea is not for one. Raise the ship that I was sunk. You could be the one for me, like the friends that we used to be. Raise the ship then fly away, like we knew we would someday. We could easily set to shore, like we own this. Well, I guess things change over time. Yeah, a friend I once called mine. We could easily sail so maybe I'm from yesterday broke free. We could move so far away, like we knew we would someday. Yet we always have to blame when we know who. Yet we always say, yeah, maybe, maybe, maybe I will be free. Well, I guess things change over time. Yeah, a friend I once called mine. We could easily sail so maybe I'm from yesterday broke free. Well, I guess things change over time. Yeah, a friend I once called mine. We could easily sail so maybe I'm from. Well, I guess things change over time. Yeah, a friend I once called mine. We could easily sail so maybe I'm from yesterday broke free.
Oh, those sub drops. Oh, yes. They make my heart tingle. Yeah, so those background vocals, yeah. We let's see what I did with those. So there's a bit of light compression, but it's more about the EQ and just removing spots where it would be intrusive on the main vocal. So I've really scooped the lows out up to 300 hertz. Don't be afraid of doing that on backing vocals especially. There was a big lump around 500 hertz. The 1 point something K is the vocal region. I say 1 point something because that's song dependent. The 3 point something K is kind of a presence peak, that kind of range. So I found that was slightly higher in this case. And that made it quieter, of course, so you just bump the volume up to match. And LA2A is doing a bit of soft compression, and the virtual mix bus is just a little bit of something to just make it sit nicer. And yeah.
I guess things change over time. Yeah, a friend I
It's funny, I'm going to name drop now. Last week, I spent a couple of days with Ackle from Tesseract, and his production style fascinated me. One of his guitar tracks had cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts on it, and I was just like, whoa, dude! And he was like, well, I did a couple of cuts, and then later in the mix, I could hear things that were annoying me, so I cut them. Then later in the mix, I could hear things that were annoying me, so I cut them. And it's like, well, overall, it works because Tesseract stuff sounds incredible. So there you go. I know I digress, but there you go. So, this one's got quite a few that are going to need de-essing. So let me just slip all those into the right place. They definitely need to go in the right place in the chain before any soothe, before any decapitator, especially before any sort of anything else. Now, this is Watch the World, and this one really starts about here. So obviously the piano kicks in, but this is going to fade in underneath the previous track. So don't worry about this piano piece at the start, it just loops. This is where we start to actually hear the song start to lift up from below the previous track's fade out.
Far away from me, I'll follow you. I'll ignore everything you do. Tell me you're fine, guess that's a lie. It's a lie, so we fall down. Never make ground. Yeah, we all drown. After all, so I carry you home. We watch the world fall down. Something that we can't turn around. Watch it pursue the ground. Yet we all think we're safe and sound. Wasting my time, chasing the light. I made mistakes I can't deny. Promises made, selfishness paid. It paid off, so we fall down. Never make ground. Yeah, we all drown. After all, so I carry you home. Don't leave me here on my own. We watch the world fall down. Something that we can't turn around. Watch it pursue the ground. Yet we all think we're safe and sound. Safe and sound. We watch the world fall down. Something that we can't turn around. Watch it pursue the ground. Yet we all think we're safe and sound.
Cool. Just had a question from Root in the chat. Just experience with the SPL de-esser. It works sometimes or most of the time. I'm using it, so it must be good. I mean, I appreciate the confidence, but hello, Anna, by the way. The SPL de-esser, I only started using it today because the Waves de-esser, because of the licensing thing I was talking about at the start of the stream with the real pain where they basically took away my second license because I won't pay the upgrade plan, so screw those guys. So the SPL de-esser, it works well in my experience, the SPL deesser doesn't work well when it's a really aggressive source and you need to take lots of S away without it sounding like but for those kind of applications, I have the Aosis deesser. But I know that the Aosis deesser has some really complicated setup involved in getting it just perfect. It takes a lot of work, but it can have some really good results. What I needed in this case, I'm just going to take that back out, was something simple that doesn't do much, because these vocals sounded almost good. But if let's just play a little bit in here, and I'll just turn off these DSs. You'll hear that it sounds okay, but there's just a little bit of sibilance that's just a bit too much. Which isn't bad. It doesn't sound really nasty, it's just a little too much. In that case, a simple deesser like the Waves deesser or the SPL deesser should work perfectly fine. You just turn up the dial until just enough of the S is gone. Simple, no problem. When it's really aggressive, which you sometimes get if I've been sent something to mix and it's got... if it's got, come on. Yeah, if it's got really aggressive S-ing, then that's where the Aosis one is needed, but it's a lot more subtle and tweakable and dialable, and you really need to get into doing that one right. In this case, it was more of a gentle catch-all, very much like the hardware SPL deesser or like the old DBX deesser, where if you use it too much, it sounds like you sing through a blanket, but if you just use the right amount on a bright vocal, you still have the S, which is what I want, but just not enough to be offensive. So that was the thing there, is just getting enough S. Yeah, if Absolute Vodka, Alpheus, switched from making vodka to plugin development, what do you think the plugins would do? They'd be sickly sweet and flavoured is what they would be, or they'd just be kind of just like everybody else is. I don't have much time for Absolute. I'm a licensed barman, by the way, and never really had time for Absolute Vodka. It just tastes like potato water to me. I mean, I was never a big vodka fan, but if I was going to drink vodka, it'd be something more like Zabrodka or maybe Grey Goose. Because, yeah, Absolute is just mass manufactured. Yeah. Anyway, those are the 4 songs that are pretty much finished, and essentially were finished until I opened up the tracks and found that the Wave stuff had stopped working today. But yeah, as of next week, we'll reamp the bass for Octavia, and that won't take much more work, and then we'll reamp the bass for everything else. And we'll be at the point where then we just need to do a little more work. And we'll be getting into Melodyne territory, then automation territory, and hopefully very soon, this album will start to fall into place. And just to reiterate what I said at the start of the stream, these 4, I copied the settings from Meant to Be. I'm going to play Meant to Be to play us out. But yeah, these, once I was really happy with this, and I am really happy with this song actually, once I played this, I copied the drum settings, the master settings, all the other settings to the other tracks off stream, and I tidied up the other 7 songs, project files, which, having seen me on stream doing that with the other songs, is the same process, just repeated, so I didn't think you needed to see that 13 times. That's just a waste of your time. So let's hit play on this to play us out, because this is Meant to Be, and this is one of my favourite tracks. Why is that one mute? Why are all these guitars muted? Sorry. Why are you auto-muted? What's wrong with you? Why is Wall of Sound creating a horrible DC? Something weird is happening here. Tracks don't just auto-mute. Good question from Van Deen. Why are some called Odd Squad and some Mesetto? Right, so I think I briefly mentioned this, but just to be super on the level, the band, when we took them on to our record label, was called Odd Squad. But Odd Squad's not a very marketable name. It's not a great name. They came up with the band name when they were 14. And so we sat them down at the time and we said, look, guys, this is a weird band name. It's not going to work. Think of something that's a bit more adult, because they were like 19, 20 at the time when we talked to them. We were like, think of something a bit more contemporary. Let's do this right. Let's do this as a fresh start. And they came up with Mesetto, which apparently is Japanese for moving forward, which became the title of the album. I'm really confused now as to why this is... is going on? This was absolutely not happening last week. What the holy McFlipping heck is this? You know what, let's close this project. And let's open that project again and see if that fixes it, because that's actually usually one of the really good things about Reaper is the auto mute feature. The auto mute feature comes in if you've got a track where there's some sort of weird plugin thing, or you've got horrible feedback coming in, or anything where the level is a ridiculously high, unreasonable level. Rather than it letting you blow your speakers out, it automatically, as a safety, catches it and just cuts it, and then just says auto mute, and you look and you go, why is that? And then you find out why and you fix it. But I cannot think of a good reason, apart from the Waves plugins there, why that would be. See, it's working fine now. Anyway, that has never happened before with that plugin, and hopefully that was just a one-off glitch. Let's play it and have a listen, and that will be us playing out for the night.
Taking my attention with your hopes and dreams that were intended. Close your blinds, now you're on your road home. Your excuses of losing interest. Remember when we used to feel so free, following our dreams. Friends and friends ignited too. So true. We'll waiting for our time, but everything that's meant to be won't be. It's just so sad to see.
I always loved that song. That was my favourite song that those guys wrote that I got to work on. So, yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And tune in on Monday, where we're going to be reamping all the bass stuff, and if we get time, we're going to start looking at getting the vocal chains in place, which means that the songs are going to start kind of assembling themselves, and then it's going to be a slog of Melodyne for 7 songs worth. And then it should be fine tuning, and then we get to the mastering stage. So, yes, hopefully we'll plow through this fairly quickly, because I've got a very interesting August and September coming up, and there's going to be lots of big news which I can't talk about yet, but I'm very excited for you guys to hear what we have planned. So thank you everybody for watching. Hit the like button if you would be so inclined. It's always appreciated. And check out the Patreon, where you help us to do these kind of things. I'm not being paid for these mixes, by the way, because this is a band that we recorded 7-ish years ago. But I just wanted to do this as a real kind of post-mortem, and to break down what we did, and to show you the new process, and kind of walk you through it step by step by step. With no pressure on from any outside influence, so I get to play with my toys, so to speak. So yeah, if you found this useful, then supporting us really helps to keep the lights on. These shiny purple lights and these camera lights, which are making me sweat and go all shiny. But yes, thank you everybody, and I'll see you in episode 9, if not for the podcast, tomorrow. Thanks everybody. See you soon. Goodbye.
Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hot Pole Studios. See you there.